Hey guys, it's me, it's Queen Aset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, pass it on to somebody else who might like it too, and don't forget to drop us a positive comment in the comment section. And stick around to the end of the video because I have two positive comments that I'm going to respond to, and one of them might actually be yours. Okay? If you would like to get a reading done, please email me. And all of my information is underneath the video. My social media information, my Ask an Aquarius merchandise, my Patreon, all that is underneath this video and probably every other video that you may see. Now, before I get into our topic, which is quite an interesting one, I just wanted to say that I found out I have a new patron. My patron's name is Jordan. I think it's a female. I have a guy, Jordan, and I have a girl. This is my girl, Jordan. So Jordan is my new patron on Patreon. I am so thrilled. Welcome to the Patreon family. And I just started a new series on Patreon called Magical Minutes, where I talk about a little something for 8 to 10 minutes of the magical kind. But this is a service that I only put on my Patreon page. I'm thinking that maybe after a couple of months, I might release them on YouTube. But for now, they're just for my patrons. So if you would like to check out Magical Minutes, please check out the link to Patreon underneath this video. If I'm not mistaken, it's $5 to sign up, and there are different tiers. So if you want to sign up just to see everything that's there, it's $5. Then the next tier up, if I'm not mistaken, is $15, and you're going to get a shout out like Jordan gets right now, and I'll put you underneath each video on my list of patrons. For $35, you get both of those things, the shout out on the list, and you get to talk to me once a month for 30 minutes. So a lot of people have been using it to get a reading every month for 30 minutes. So it's been very helpful in that way. But you don't have to. You can just chat. You can tell me something. We can kick it around. We can discuss astrology, anything like that. So check out my Patreon. All right, so today's topic, let's get into it. Today's topic is famous Aquarius, because I promised I would do a famous Aquarius every week. My first one was Rick James, because I'm doing my favorites first. So Rick James was my first favorite. And now today we're going to do Robert Nesta Marley, known by his stage name of Bob Marley. So many of you will know, you'll recognize the name Marley. Even if you don't know who Bob is, which most people do, you'll recognize the name because he has lots and lots of children. One of the things I noticed as I've started to research famous Aquarius, we all have all this damn controversy. Every Aquarius has scandals and controversies and people talking about us. And oh my God, Bob is no exception. So let me get into Bob. Bob Marley was a Rastafarian, a musician, a spiritual man. He wasn't really political, but he did talk a lot about politics, meaning he wasn't a politician, but he did critique politics a lot. Bob, he was extraordinary. He was a visionary. But there was a lot of controversy around his love life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bob, because I could talk about Bob for like 3 or 4 hours. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit. And if you want to know more, YouTube has a lot of videos, a lot of documentaries on Bob Marley. All right. So Bob, like I said before, was a Rastafarian, and he is basically the person, one of the people who started reggae. They call his music reggae roots now. Now, there was some other music before that, lots of other music before that. One of them that was noted was ska and jazz. There were different, elements that came together to create reggae. But Bob and the Wailers and some of them other, real young groups were the roots of reggae. That's what they call it now, reggae roots. So Bob was very young. I'll give you a little bit of his background. One of the things a lot of people don't know about Bob that I found to be fascinating is that his father was a white man and his mother was Jamaican. His father was like 40 years older than his mother. She was a very simple farm girl in Jamaica. Met this guy, he promised her financial stability. Jamaica at that time, and still to this day, had some economical issues that they were going through, and they were at their height during this time. So Bob's father promised his mother economic stability if she married him. So she did. She got pregnant with Bob, and then he kind of helped a little bit, and it gets really fuzzy at what point he was gone, and he died when Bob was fairly early too. But around 5 years old, his influence seems to trail off. So Bob, it says here, really got into music, songwriting, singing, that kind of thing as he got older. By the time he was in like his 19, 20, 21, he was really getting into playing. He had his little band. And they were like a sensation. In the documentary I was watching, Jamaicans were just amazed by his work because not only was it this great, great sound, but the lyrics. I mean, like Bob's lyrics is where it really all comes together because he was talking about race. He was talking about spirituality. Remember I told you he was a Rastafarian. So he would talk about his spirituality in his songs. He would talk about love. He would talk about peace. He would talk about the system and how it was like, oppressing the people. And at that time in Jamaica, there was a lot of political unrest. He was talking about that. So he was singing these songs. And at one point in time, he said he thought his songs were kind of like the people's newspaper, because he said that a lot of people couldn't read or didn't have access. Most of them listened to the radio though. So his music was how he was getting across these messages of peace and the fact that people were being oppressed, and that we were mentally enslaved and being taken advantage of basically by these governments and by these systems and by these corporations. The same kind of thing we talk about today. The same kind of thing. And Bob was talking about it, and he was encouraging people through his songs, to fight, to stand up for their rights, to get out there and do something to make a difference. Bob wasn't just an artist. Bob was like a prophet, and people responded that way to him. A lot of people were really moved by him. The independence movement in Zimbabwe said they were greatly influenced by his songs. And it was all during the time of like, the 1960s. And that time period was already like rebellions and people fighting back. And the United States had all kinds of protests, and it was going on all over the world. And a lot of people talked about how his music really encouraged them. And this was not an accident. This was deliberate. Bob saw his messages as being liberating for people, healing for people. And that's why he sang about the things that he sang about. So it says here also that he got married. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Whenever I bring up Bob Marley and his genius and all of that, and all of these things are very Aquarius, by the way. The creativity, all of this is very Aquarius. But every time I bring it up, somebody will always mention every single time, and it's usually, I hate to say this I'm not trying to be rude, but it's usually brought up by somebody who is a really messed up person, because they go right to the negative. You know what I mean? Whenever somebody always goes right to the negative, you done said 20 pages of positive and they don't respond and go right to a negative, that's somebody that's generally in themselves messed up. But every time I mention Bob, I post a meme about Bob or anything, somebody will mention that he was a womanizer. Okay, this is the common consensus amongst people. So I looked in it to see, was he really a womanizer? I really wanted to dig into this. And what I've come to find out is that he was just very Aquarius with it. He married a woman named Rita Marley, and Rita was in his band. So she was his wife. She was the mother of some of his kids. She had kids of her own. One kid, I don't know where the kids come in at, but I know one of them she had by another man while they were married. So it was a big mess going on. But anyway, he married Rita at 21 years old. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like they got married because they were in love. But Bob was very Aquarius, like I told you guys before. So with Aquarius, one of the things, and I had this same problem, so I really can't say nothing, but one of the things is we have a tendency to attract a lot of lovers, you know? And the women, they just, oh my God. And I can, yo, I can't even hold you. The women just flow like water. When I came out that I was a lesbian and I started to like talk to people, every time I turned around, there was another woman. Women are like, they just flow. I mean, there was always men around, men trying to hit on me, stuff like that. But the women, oh my God, it was like a flow of them. And Bob had a very similar situation going on. The difference between me and him was that I was single during this time. So as it was, you know, I remember going on dates with more than one woman in a day, you know, being on a date with one and she dropped me off and the other one was waiting at my house. I mean, like, like the flow was crazy. And Bob had a similar flow. The difference was just the fact that I was single, he was married, and Rita, his wife, she said that she always knew about this. She just turned a blind eye, which I found to be interesting. And she said she did have hurt, she did have jealous, they did have fights, but she said that she stuck by him. And after a while, she felt like more of a caregiver, more like a big sister, you know, than really a wife. And when asked why, like, why would you stay with this person? Why didn't you just kick him to the curb? And she said that for her and for him, the band was more than just a entertaining group. Okay? It was more than just a band to her. It was a revolution. She felt as though she believed in Bob. She believed in his music. She believed in his ability to touch people. At one point in time, Bob was feeding 3,000 to 4,000 people in Jamaica. He had a soup kitchen. A friend of his, I remember they were talking about how he used to help people. He used to feed them. He used to help out single moms and he used to help out kids. And like Bob just adopted everybody, looked out for everybody. Very Aquarian, again, that humanitarian thing going on, looking out for everybody. And one of his friends ended up running this soup kitchen. And the song, one of his famous songs is called No Woman, No Cry. He gave him rights to the royalties so he could keep feeding people beyond his death in this soup kitchen. And according to the reports, it was open until 2008. Okay, so Bob died, it says here in 1981. So more than 20 plus years later, that gift was still feeding people. So she believed in that. She thought it was bigger than just a relationship. And she felt like she took on more of a role of a caregiver. Apparently she had a baby with another man, so I don't think she was just sitting home twiddling her thumbs while he was doing God knows what. She even talked about in the interview, she said he was wild like a dog. And I started laughing because I was like, yeah, people, if I had $1 for every time I was called wild, that is, that's one of my biggest adjectives that people have used for me since I was like 2. So when she said that, I bust out laughing. His nickname in the press was the Wild Man. You know, Aquarius get that rap for being the wild, free spirit. A lot of us do anyway. And he definitely was very Aquarius in that sense. It says he was born on February 6, 1945 in 9 Mile, Jamaica, which from what I looked at in the documentary was like in the country. And later on his family moved to the city. He died on May 11th, 1981 in Miami. And it was said that he had cancer. They talked about how he had this problem with his toe, and that spread. It was like skin cancer, and it spread from his toe to his lungs to his brain. And that's how he died. And he was only 36 years old. Now, okay, so I told you about all these women, okay? So there's women, just women, women, women. So his wife had 4 children with him. But he's said to have fathered anywhere between 11 and 22 children. There was a child born right after he died. So the actual number of kids isn't really known, because back then I don't think paternity tests was even as big of a thing as they are now. And I don't know if these people even care to find out now, because I think you can find something like that out now. But the number was 11 to 22. There are, I think, 11 official and possibly up to 22. And basically, like I said, when you look at the documentary, they said that his weakness was women. And I was like, same. That was my weakness for a long time. And so basically he just, Rita was turning a blind eye and was doing her own thing. And he did his thing. And like I said, whenever you mention Bob, that's what comes up. And again, that is very Aquarius. That wandering, not wanting to commit, being in a committed relationship, but not really being committed. My marriage was like that. I was in a marriage, but I wasn't really committed, which is why I got divorced. And Bob just kept it going, and she stayed with him. And then some of these children that he had with other women came to live with them. So it was like the two of them, they stayed together, and she's still the person that is the head of his estate. His kids and her, they're the ones that, do everything with there's a foundation, there's a museum, there's all kinds of stuff, and they're the ones that are still in charge of it. So my thing is that that's Bob Marley. There's a lot more to his story. They tried to assassinate him because he was saying things to the people that the higher ups didn't want them to know. So in the 80s, there was an assassination attempt on him. He fled to England. He stayed there, did a couple albums, some of his best work, and then he went back to Jamaica. And I think that what I was saying before, that Bob was very Aquarius in the creativity, in the wildness, the women. They said he was very disciplined too, as far as his work was concerned. Another very Aquarius thing. That's the influence from Saturn. Very Aquarius. A lot of us are workaholics. He was said to be a workaholic, and a lot of us are very serious about what we're producing, and we all have a cause. His music, his creativity was his cause. So I do find the fact that he, had all these affairs on his wife to be problematic. Because quite frankly, I don't understand, and I guess I would have to ask him. Maybe when I pass over, I can ask him, like, what were you doing? Because I know as an Aquarius, we love to do whatever we want to do, but I don't understand how somebody who was so conscious, who was so kind, who had such a pulse on the on the wrist of the people, somebody who wanted so much better for this world, somebody who was such a light, somebody who could prophesize, literally. Remember, I think I told you at 4 years old, I don't know if I told you this part, but at 4 years old, they said Bob was reading palms and accurately telling people predictions about their life. So I'm like, how is it that somebody who's so in tune couldn't see how painful it is to be married and running around on this person, and then expect them to just take care of you and just take it, basically? you know? But I told you, every Aquarius that I looked up is controversial. One day, somebody's going to be sitting somewhere. If I have any success at all, somebody's going to be sitting somewhere telling a story about my controversial life too. It's just like I said before, it's very Aquarius. And also another thing about it is that he was very, very famous. Aquarius have the tendency to be very good at what we do, and a lot of us do get famous in one way or another. So does his womanizing for me take away from who he was as a person? No. Because it looks like, even from listening to his wife, it looks like 90% of what he set out to do had a noble means to it. So I gotta give him that. I can't take away, when you listen to his songs, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. When you look at the stuff that he was talking about, it's impossible to just be like, oh, he was just some dude that was womanizing. And not only that, he took care of all his kids. He didn't just make these babies and then be like, oh, y'all be all right. He took care of all these kids. Many of them lived with him. So my thing is that I don't really like that aspect of it. And I do think that's problematic. And Rita did seem like to me like it hurt. She even said it hurt. She said that sometimes it hurt her deep down inside. So I do empathize with that aspect of it, but it doesn't take away. Just like with Rick James, when I told you guys about him last week, he did some crazy stuff, but it doesn't take away from the other stuff that he did right. So let's take a look at our positive comments from the comment section. First of all, Wolfie. Somebody named Wolfie said to me in the comment section that you can have a good relationship with an Aries as an Aquarius, but you have to fix the Aries first. And when I saw that, I was just like, you can't fix another person. And as a priestess, I had to learn this. I had to learn this early on too, because it was, it was quite an issue. But you can't fix another person. All you can do is encourage them to fix themselves. And the reason why I say that is because they have to be willing to do the work. If you want somebody to be a better person, you can encourage it. You can give them tools. You can talk to them about it. You can do any of those things. But it's ultimately that person that makes that decision. You didn't fix them. You gave them the tools to fix themselves. And I think it's kind of arrogant to think that you can go around fixing people. And a lot of people fall into that. I fell into that. A lot of mothers fall into that. A lot of wives, a lot of husbands fall into that. And if you can just understand that you can't fix another person, but you can help them heal themselves. You can give them ideas, but stay away from the idea that you're going to fix them, because time and time again, that's a big mistake. Also, a lot of times when somebody thinks they're fixing other people, the other person is just pretending to shut you up, by the way. And my last point is, a lot of times while you're fixing other people, you're neglecting the shit that's fucked up with you. Okay? Because I know for a fact when I was spending my time, trying to make my best friend get her stuff together, or trying to fix some person I wanted to be with, I wasn't doing my own stuff. I was so focused on making them what I wanted them to be that I didn't even look at, am I what I want me to be? So I think that's a very dangerous game to play, and I don't play that. Miss Bridges said he will be missed. She's talking about Chadwick Boseman. She said he will be missed. I also cried when I found out he had passed. You would have thought I knew him personally. A Message from the King is also a favorite of mine. Rest in peace, King. A lot of people said that. That's why I wanted to read this one. A lot of people said, I feel like I knew him. Chadwick touched so many people that perfect strangers. And I know I felt the same way. And other people have inboxed me and been like, I didn't even know him. Why do I feel such a sense of grief and loss? Because that's a light. When a person that you don't know passes away and you can feel it that deeply, that person was an earth angel. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So come back soon because I got a lot more to say. See you later.